G'day guys, what's going on? Welcome to my podcast. Here mate, we talk about all kinds of bloody topics. From fishing, beers, also too I get some very interesting people on here. Just to see what their point of view is and what's going on and just have a good old yak. This is Having a Yak Podcast mate, with me, your host Matt the Big Bear Edwards. Let's just have a yak, shall we? Hey, what's going on everyone? Matt here again with another episode of Having a Yak Podcast. This is episode 10, mate. This is episode 10. And I've also got some news for you guys. I have hit over 100 listens. 100 listens. Thank you very much for that, guys. I really appreciate that. Now, today, I'm just by myself today. I've got no one else with me there today. Now, like it says in the title, I want to talk to you about whiskey. Now, whiskey, scotch, that type of thing. Irish whiskey, scotch whiskey, or just normal whiskey. That is what's on today's episode today, guys, and so let's get to it. Now, whiskey has had a very, very long history. Now, whiskey, now also too, you also got to remember this too. Whiskey actually comes from the original word from Gaelic, meaning water of life. But what the actual word is originally was called Ushkabar. Now, Ushkabar, like I said, was from the Gaelic word, water of life. It is that was a Celtic word that was spoken through the Highlands of Scotland and Ireland and those type of places. Now, whiskey has had a very long history, a very adventurous type story. Many brave people over the years have had so many things to do to make sure that it actually does keep flowing. And and the thing is too, right, guys, is that whiskey's been around for a long time. Now, with whiskey or scotch or something like that, it all comes up to the way it's been distilled. Like, that's basically it, the history of distilling. Now, it's basically came from whiskey. How it actually really came up was it could be evolved from to be other things, like there's whiskey, bourbon, rye, scotch, but it's got some really fun little things in the history of it. So one thing that people got to understand too is that there's two ways of actually spelling whiskey. There is Whiske, then Whisky. Now, with that, it also depends on where the actual whiskey was actually made. Now, I actually honestly did not know this until I actually figured that out for myself, or I've learned over the time. Now, whiskey without an E refers to the Scotch, Canadian, Japanese grain whiskies. Now, whiskey with an E refers to the grain spirits distilled in Ireland, United States, and it's only whiskey who might pull you up on the actual spelling of, like, the real connoisseurs, I suppose you would nearly say, of whiskey lovers that would pull you up on the spelling of that. But it all differences ends there. That's basically it. At the country of origin that the spirit was actually made, that's where it really stops. Now, to be considered as a scotch, it has to be made and distilled, bottled, barreled, everything in Scotland. Okay? And that is considered as a proper scotch. You can't call it whiskey, or you can't call a scotch whiskey or anything like that in any other country. Like, you can't go to America and say, righto, I'm going to make a scotch. No, mate, you can't do that because it's not made in Scotland. Now, one of the other bigger things when it comes to this type of spirit is the differences between single malt and blended. Now, single malt Scotch whiskey is also a blend. There is many different types of Scotches out there, or type of whiskies out there that actually do blended whiskies. All right. But it's a blend of malt whiskey produced in just one distillery. That's the single malt. So an effort to be called a single means a single place of origin, whereas blended whiskies is a blended of grain and malt whiskey from multiple distilleries. So let's just say, for example, right? Let's just say this. So say if you want a single malt Scotch, right? Barman, I would like a bottle of Scotch, please, single malt. Well, you go to, say, a Glenfiddich. That's a Scotch whiskey. That's a single malt, I'm pretty sure. Then you go over, okay, barman, I would like a blended Scotch whiskey, please. That's when you go to the Monkey Shoulder. And I think Johnny Walker is too. But there is multiple different ways of having it. There's malted, and then there's the blended. Now let's just go through the history of whiskey. Now it wasn't actually whiskey from the very beginning. No, it was not. It was actually the art of the distillery and that type of thing was actually founded in an ancient area. Now I've got some notes here. I'm not going to quote everything. I'm not actually going to say this is the way it is. This is just what I found out. This is what my research has showed me. Now, the distillery, or the distillation, was founded in ancient area, modern day equivalent of the area covering parts of Iraq and Syria. This was in 2000 BC. Often used as the way to produce perfumes and aromatics, so aromas. And so in 100 AD, we found the first written recording of distillery in ancient Greek, or ancient Greece, I suppose. Now, I can't pronounce his last name or the lower name of it, but it's Alexander the Petropolis or something, I don't know. Describes the process of taking seawater and distilling it into pure drinking water. Medieval civilizations evolved their techniques over the following centuries, though still not resulting in alcohol. Now, you probably get some form of knowledge of actually okay, Matt, well then how come the ancient Romans had wine? Well, I'll get to that, mate. Knowledge of distillation spread across Europe along the travelling Moors in the early process of picking up those in the Christian regions using the produced ingredients of various things. Also medicines like smallpox, colic, that type of stuff. So really, that was 500 to 1000 AD. The other one was 100 AD. The first of the Alexander thing, that was 100 AD. This one here is 500 to 1000 AD. That's between that time. Alright, so now we'll go down to another more or less 200 years, or 1,200 years, or whatever. Yeah, this is 1000 to 1200 AD. Alright? The origin of whiskey began over 1,000 years ago, with the distillation made a migration from the mainland Europe to Scotland and Ireland by travelling monks. So really, the knowledge of all this was actually done by the monks. I actually did not know that, mate. But it was actually done by the monks. Sorry, guys, that's just me phone vibrating. Now, the Scotch and Irish monasteries were lacking vineyards and grapes. So listen to this, guys. So they didn't have vineyards, they didn't have grapes, because obviously the climate in Scotland and Ireland is too bloody cold, isn't it? Because you need a nice hot summer type climate to grow grapes, don't you, like in France? Well, they turned fermenting grain mash, resulting in the first distillations of modern whiskey. So whiskey's been around for a fucking long time, mate. A very long time. So basically, Ireland and Scotland can thank the people of the monasteries from Europe, the monks, come over to Scotland and actually make the original Scotch and Irish whiskey. Pretty good, I reckon. Alright, so now this is 1250 AD. Now, this might seem like a very long episode. This might seem very boring to some people, but to some people, this might actually be a very good episode. This is the history of whiskey. This is the origin of whiskey. Now, this is 1250. The earliest records of alcohol distillation appears in Italy. Now, this is what I was talking to you guys before. Being distilled from wine. And that was in 1232 to 1335 by this Ramon. I can't pronounce his last name. Sorry, guys. Now, 1405. Now, we're getting into the real medieval type times now, aren't we? Now, the first written record of whiskey, that is without an E, appears in Ireland, where it was written that the head of the clan died. And I can't pronounce that because it's all in Gaelic, but it's apparently taking a surfeit or something, a sufficient amount. So basically what's happened was he died from drinking too much, basically. He basically died of drinking too much at Christmas. Alright, so now we'll go back down now to 1494. Now this is, I'm not going to say AD anymore because this is around the time now. Now, by this time, distillation of whiskey in Scotland was fully underway. Now, this is in 1494. By the record of these something rolls in 1494, where King James IV of Scotland granted a large amount of malt. And I'm not going to pronounce that either. By the order of the king, basically, he's more or less, by the look of this, he's more or less saying to let's make whiskey, basically. Now, from 1536 to 1541, now production of whiskey shifted to the general public after King Henry VIII of England dissolved the monasteries and making a large number of monks independent and looking for new ways to make a living. Distillation was it. So basically, King Henry VIII of England basically said, right, you blokes, get out here and start fucking working and doing your own thing. We're going to get rid of your buildings, get rid of your churches type thing, or your monasteries, and get rid of them. Now you got to basically got to fight for yourself. Excuse me. Now, well, they more or less said to the king, more or less, I didn't actually say to the king, but they probably would have said, well, okay, well, we're going to keep making whiskey. So this is 1600 and onwards. As European colonialists began to arrive in America, they brought with them the practice of distilling of whiskey. Many Scotch and Irish immigrants settled there, new territories eventually beginning to distill new types of grains and mash. Now, I'm guessing this is when they started making the bourbons and that type of thing, or the rye and that type of thing. All right. Now we're going to go down to 1608. Now the old Bushmills distillery is licensed in Northern Ireland. Today holds the title of the oldest licensed distillery in the world. Jesus, really? The old Bushmills distillery. And I've actually heard of that whiskey. I've never tried it, but apparently I've heard good things about it. Now, let's go down for another 100 years to 1707 to 1725. The Acts of Union resulted in the merging of kingdoms of Scotland and of England, to creating the Great Britain. So basically, after the rebellions of Scotland, the English defeated them, and I dare say that would have been with the Jacobites, or would have thought. And then that's how they formed the Great Britain. So the following years, taxes rose dramatically. The English malt tax of 1725 seriously threatened the production of whiskey and led to the majority of Scotch distilleries to head underground and begin production at night. whiskey, one of the most finest nicknames of moonshine. So there you go, guys. There you go. We've actually finally realised, I never knew this. I actually have no idea where moonshine originally came from. It came from Scotland. The good old Scots came up with one of the biggest names. So I'm just going to read that bit again. So the English malt tax of 1725 seriously threatened the production of whiskey and led to the majority of Scottish distilleries to head underground. To begin production at night, giving the whiskey one of the finest nicknames, moonshine. So there you go, guys. That's how you got the moonshine name. By the Scottish distillers going in the ground, making their whiskies and that at night time, creating the moonshine. There you go. Alright, so now we're going to go down to 1775 to 1783. Now, I don't know if you guys know your history, but this is when the American Civil War, not the Civil War, the Revolution War of America actually happened. Many years after producing their own whiskey and seeing the value of general population, distillers often used whiskey as a currency during the American Revolutionary War. Sorry for not pronouncing that properly. Alright, so 1783. Now this is from 1775, from 1783. That was about the currency. And this is 1783. The first commercial distillery was founded in Louisville, Kentucky, on the banks of the Ohio River. Sorry for pronouncing that wrong, guys. I know there's a few Americans listening to this. I'm very sorry about that. By Evan Williams. Now, I've actually heard of that whiskey. It's a very, well, I honestly don't think it would be classed as a whiskey because being in America, I dare say it would be probably classed as a bourbon. But in any case, it's still a spirit, so I'll definitely give you that. By Evan Williams, yeah. So I've actually, I've heard of Evan Williams. I've actually heard of that bourbon. It's actually classed as a bourbon now. And I've actually heard of it, and I've heard pretty good things. Now, in 1791, the new exercise was introduced to help people fund debt and from the Revolutionary War, blah blah blah. Import duties were already at a high, so there was actually a excess tax as well. And producing the distilled spirits was levied. And the first kind of the new national government, although the tax applied to distillers, distilled spirits of any kind, whiskey was the most popular, of course. So in this expense, it became commonly known as whiskey tax. There's always taxes in there when it really comes to things like this, isn't there? There's always taxes. There's always someone who wants to get the leg up and get more money out of people. It's not good anyway, but that's just the way it was, I suppose. Alright, so this was 1791 to 1794. The unrest between the grain farmers and the US government have soon been dubbed as a whiskey rebellion. Now, I actually did not know this. There was actually a whiskey rebellion. For fuck's sake, a whiskey rebellion. Now, this is unreal. The farmers used distilling their surplus grains into whiskey in a united protest. Alright, so a protest that gathered speed by the western counties of Pennsylvania, and the federal officials were in order to deny collection of tax. So basically, they were basically told them to get stuffed. You're not getting me money off me. You're not getting more taxes off me. So bad luck. Now, the rebellion came to a turning point in July 1794 when the Home Tax Inspector General John Neville, sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, was attacked by nearly 600 armed men. President Washington responded by sending in a militia force around 13,000 to march west to meet the resistance with force. The rebels disbanded before they arrived. The key leaders fled to safety, and the mass protesting came to an end. Alright, so now this is getting to the real interesting stages of whiskey, in my opinion anyway. 1801. While the physical rebellion halted, the opposition to the whiskey tax continued and became sufficient issue of the following more sort of politics elections. Nearly formed the Democratic Republican Party, led by Thomas Jefferson, who pledged to repel the tax and if voted into power. Same bloody thing with politics. And when Jefferson took office in 1801, he did just that. That's good then, isn't it? Finally, a politician who actually said, I'm going to do this, mate. Don't worry about it. It's all good. As long as you vote me in, it's going to be all good, mate. Just bloody get me in and I'll be all good. Got in. Right. That's it. No more of that. Well, there you go. So he actually done it. So that's good. Now, in 1820, now we're going over to, here we go. Now we're going over to Scotland. A Scottish grocer named John Walker, now you should know that name, began producing his own whiskey, which became one of the most famous and most widely distributed brands of Scotch whiskey in the world. John Walker himself. I've got no idea what that bloody word is. A teetotaler? I don't know. But that was Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker's Scotch. Beautiful stuff. I'm not a big fan of the black one, but I do like the blue one. I've never tried the green one, but all right. 1823. Yeah, the other one was 1820. This is 1823. The United Kingdom brought the moonshine production to an end when they gave Scottish distilleries the option to legalise their operations by paying a fee. Again, with the bloody fees and taxes, mate. So basically, with the moonshine business, obviously the United Kingdom said, no, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You can make your whiskey, properly. You can make it legally type thing. And you can make it so everyone can drink it, which is good. So now you don't have to make it as a moonshine and make it underground. You can actually make up a proper distillery as long as you pay a fee. Typical. Fuck. Jesus Christ. All right. Again, in 1883, the process that the sour mash, now a lot of people probably would know what a sour mash is, was developed by Dr. James C. Crowe. This was now the Woodford Reserve Distillery in Kentucky. In process of amount of spent mash, have added in new mash and the balance of acid and live yeast. This that is controls growth of foreign bacteria, involving consistency of between batches. That every bowl is as close as the previous as possible. This in the way of which is bourbon is made. So this is the creation of bourbon in 1823, guys. Which also legal requirements producing Tennessee whiskey. Current requirement when producing Tennessee whiskey. Tennessee whiskey is Jack Daniels, which is made from a sour mash, and 1831, after inventing the still, the continuous still. So I'm pretty sure they're those real big, massive ones, like the real huge ones. Involved in technology, involved in distillation, Irish inventor, Arias Coffee, made of the coffee still. Now, this is not coffee like the drink coffee. This is COFFLE still. Now, I've actually heard of this. I'm pretty sure they're those real big ones. Allowing manufacturers to produce whiskey more effectively and at lower costs. Now, in 1840, the Old Bourbon County was producing Old Bourbon County whiskies for some years. The name was used to from other, well, more or less differences between other whiskies because Old Bourbon was the first corn whiskey that most people had come across. It wasn't until 1840 it was officially given the name bourbon. And the distiller named by Jacob Spears was the first label to produce the product as bourbon whiskey. So really, in some ways, guys, the differences really between bourbon and whiskey that I've actually figured out is it's the same. Like the actual Scotch is actually made in the same way, or the whiskey is made in the same way, but just called a different name. That's basically what it is. Basically. So bourbon and whiskey are more or less in some ways the same type of thing, but in completely different things at the same time. It's a bit interesting when it comes to that type of thing. All right. So in 1850, the first blended whiskey comes into production. Andrew Usher mixed the traditional pot still whiskey with a new batch produced in the coffee still. Usher met the stubborn resistance of the traditional Irish distillers, many of whom claimed that it was a new blend, was not whiskey at all. Still, his company became the first producer to mass market of bottled blended whiskies, and even became the most popular import into the US after finding the finding of with Nicholas and Co. in 1853. Excuse me. I had a bit of I'm having a drink of water actually. Now this is in 1920 to 1933. Now this was not a good time in America. Oh, that's better. If you know your history, you know why. Now, 1920 to 1933, 13 years. That was not a good time to be in America if you're a drinker. The American Prohibition era banned all production, sale, and use of alcohol. However, the federal government made the exception of medication, so medicine whiskey from a doctor, to be sold through a licensed pharmacy. During the same time frame, the pharmacy chain Walgreens used to take this to advantage and grown from 20 stores to nearly 400. So I don't know Walgreens. I'm pretty sure that's a big American pharmacy chain. We don't have it here in Australia, I'm pretty sure, but they went from 20 stores to 400. So from that prohibition area, but that would have been interesting. Like how would you actually go to the doctor and actually say, okay, I need some help with sleeping, I suppose. Would they give you whiskey for that reason? Like what reasons would they have to give to actually give you that whiskey to actually allow you to actually have that whiskey? What would they actually have to give you to actually let you have that whiskey? Or do you have to have like an illness or a sickness, or I know they're the same things but different things, I suppose. Like muscle pains, headaches, sleeping problems, mental problems. What type of things would they have to give you the alcohol to actually able to give you the actual whiskey for it? It's interesting. I might actually look that up next time, guys, and I'll give you the answer in the next episode. All right. Now this is around the time when my mum was born, 1964. She was born 62. Bourbon really hit the big time as American Congress declared bourbon whiskey as the country's official distilled spirit. So there you go, everyone. In 1964, America that more or less claimed bourbon to be their national spirit. Well, that's good on bloody good on you, America. Good on you. No, good on you, mate. Now, also laid out specific regulations that have to be met in order to label whiskey as bourbon. For more details, read what is bourbon, blah blah blah. Now I might make up another episode, or might make a part 2 of this, and I might actually do bourbon as well. Now, 2004, the American Whiskey Trail is launched to promote the many historical sites of operating distilled whiskies, distilleries. In Kentucky, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and New York. All right, now that is the official thing in 2004. So you basically have been caught up with the entire history of whiskey and of distillation. It's a pretty long history, guys. And whiskey has been around for a long, long, long time. So good on them. Now, the next part of this episode is whiskey blending. Now, I'm only going to give you a bit of a short course of this. Now, blending, like I said to you, is basically you basically grab different. I'm only going to give you the short view because there's a lot of stuff here. Now, blending of whiskies is a blend of that consists of anything from 15 to 80 different single distilleries. Now, remember what I said to you before. A single malt whiskey is distilled, barreled, bottled. That's it. That's single malt whiskey. Now, a blended whiskey, Scotch whiskey, is blended, like I said, from 15 to 50. What am I saying? 15 to 50 different distilleries, single malt distilleries. Combined portions to formula that is the secret to blending company considered. Now that is if you got say, I like your whiskey, mate, because your whiskey is nice and sweet, so I'm gonna have you. Your whiskey is nice and peaty, which is real nice. Bit of a harsher side. I'll bring yours here. Yeah. You bring yours here too. All right, yours. I want yours as well because yours is nice and floral and beautiful. Bring it here. Yours is not as sweet, but nice, so bring yours here. And then what they basically do is say, righto, Jimmy, let's get these 5 whiskies here. Righto, John, let's get these whiskies here. And we'll make up a couple of formulas, see which one's better, and then we'll mass produce that one and make it as a blended whiskey. That's basically it. So, let's get down to pass all this here. A deluxe. Now, what is a deluxe blend with Scotch whiskey? It is a blend of certain higher productions and carefully selected older, therefore more expensive whiskies. Now, this is good stuff. This is real good stuff. Now, the thing is, right? Now, some people do get confused about this too. Now, I know not everyone knows about whiskey. Not everyone understands about whiskey. Now, the problem is that some people don't understand about the 12, 14, 16, 18, 24, 58, bloody blah, blah, blah. Now, that's how many years. Now, when there is a age label, now that's 12 years. Age label on a bottle of blended whiskey is not referred to the average age of the whiskies that are blended. Now, no, the law requires that when the age is declared on the label, it must refer to the youngest whiskey of the blend. So, say if you've got a 12-year-old, say Johnny Walker in there, and you've got a 15-year-old Glenfiddich, and let's just say you've got a 24-year-old Glenmorangie. I don't know if that's the right way of pronouncing it, but you got a Glenmorangie bloody Scotch in there as well. You go by the youngest whiskey that's actually in that bottle. So in this case, it would be the 12-year-old Johnny Walker. All right. So now when it comes to ages and when it comes to years on a bottle, and it's a single malt, it refers to, and this is to my understanding, this is to my opinion, it goes by the age that actually has stayed in the barrel for. The longer it stays in the barrel, the more flavour it gets from the wood, and the more flavour it gets from the char from the wood. Because I know some places actually char their woods to get that nice oaky, well, that's in America anyway, but they get that nice flavour. And if you understand what I mean, because I drink my whiskies and my scotches neat. Sometimes I drink them mixed, but mostly neat for the good, for the real good ones. I tend to just basically, you got to really enhance the flavour of it all, mate. You got to really enhance it. Now, this is common whiskey terms, I'm actually going to say, but I'm not going to say more because we've been going on for 36 minutes already. So, all right. So obviously, you know what a single whiskey is. It's a single whiskey that product is one of a particular distillery. We already discussed that a couple times. All right. Now, what is wash? Now, I've actually never heard of this myself. A wort or mash technically becomes a wash as soon as the yeast added to the fermentation. A lot of big words in this bloody these notes. However, the term usually is used to refer to the liquid at the end of the fermentation. It is a wash that forms the raw material of the first distillation in the pot still. Process of the only distillation to prevent still process. So basically that's what a wash is. Now, what is the pot still distillation? A malt whiskey is distilled twice, alright? Twice. Although few distilleries may undertake a third distillation, which is true. Jameson, the Irish whiskey, is actually been distilled 3 times. So just remember that. Which is a huge copper kettles, basically, which resembles a real big kettles. The spirit is driven off to the fermented liquid as a vapor, and that is condensed back into a liquid. So basically, the vapor goes up on top of the kettle, and obviously what it does, it sucks up through the thing, turns it back into a liquid, and there is your spirit. Now, the first distillation, the fermented liquid or wash is put into the wash still and heated, again, type of thing, directly by fire or by steam heated coils. Now, I'm just going to go down a little bit more. I didn't realise how many bloody terms there was in whiskies. Now, we are coming to the end of this episode. Now, I want to give you a couple of my choices that I tend to love to drink and that I tend to love drinking. Now, the first one is the Glenfiddich distillery in Scotland. Now, Glenfiddich is beautiful whiskey. They're in Seaside in Scotland, remains family owned. Now, I'm just got notes on here about Glenfiddich. It's been family owned since the construction was completed in 1887, and it is a beautiful Scotch. It is absolutely beautiful, and I'm pretty sure it is a single malt whiskey, which is better in some ways. Now, Glenfiddich Bourbon Reserve is a Scotch whiskey. Its name comes from the fact that alongside the traditional Scotch palate, this also offers a sweet hint of the classic bourbon flavours, which I've not tried, which is very unfortunate because I want to try it. Now, an amber gold whiskey, the 14-year-old, is mainly malts-based flavours from the focus of oak, spice, and fruit. This is a drink that's blended from a brand and blended of different different flavours and different textures, I suppose. Now, this spirit is paying homage to its American cousins, with the bourbon notes remains favourite for whiskey lovers across the world. Its long, warming finish provides a silky mouthful of strong cinnamon hint. It's a fun, enjoyable drink and perfect for all enjoying on its own. It is definitely really nice to have on its own. Like, I tend to have the green bottle, which is the 12-year-old, and it's absolutely beautiful. Now, this next one that I choose is really nice. I've had all of them. I've was able to buy myself a we call them like a sampler pack, where I had about 4 or 5 bottles of these little bottles. They've actually still got today. I'm up on my thing, tasting all different sorts of the bottles that they actually have. Now, next one here is Glenmorangie. That's the one I'm talking about now. Glenmorangie is absolutely beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. My favourite one is the yellow one. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I think it's Glenmorangie Original. So I'm very sorry if I'm not pronouncing these words properly. I'm very sorry about that, guys. Now with Glen, I'm just going to call it Glen. With Glenmorangie, it has got some real powerful flavours. Now, this was one of the biggest brands when it comes to whiskies and scotches, and it actually has been labelled as one of the best by connoisseurs and collectors, and it's a great price point to recognise the efforts of the resulting in a remarkable drink. Now, I'm actually going to read out something here from the actual website. I'm pretty sure it's from the nose. The first thing that will impress you. Sorry, with this whiskey is a cinnamon and cumin are the two most powerful flavours that will hit you before you take a sip. It's a pleasant aroma and focuses sweet notes, which is true. Glenmorangie Grand Vintage takes the crown of the best Scotch whisky, mostly due to the balance of the crowd pleaser, and it offers a little of everything, of hints of vanilla, oak, and long, slightly malty finish, which is true. Alongside the sweetness and experience notes of leather, Christmas cake, ginger, and chocolate. That is completely true, because it's a beautiful drink. It's absolutely fantastic, and I definitely would recommend it. Like I said, I prefer the original. Alright, the next one is what I was telling you about there before, Johnnie Walker. Now, everyone knows Johnnie Walker. I'm not going to say the whole bloody thing about it, because everyone knows Johnnie Walker. I prefer the Blue Label. I've had the Blue Label. I'm not actually a real big fan of the Black Label. I reckon it's too peaty. It's really very harsh. I'm not like a weakling with it, but I know I just don't like those type of whiskies. I'm not a big fan of them. I would drink them if I was offered one. I would drink it, but I'm not a big fan. I wouldn't go out and buy myself a bottle of Black Label. Now, Blue Label is probably one of the best ones out of the lot. I've never had the green one. I've had the red one. I've had the black one. I've had the blue one. Blue one is beautiful. Now apparently this is from the website, I suppose. Now the rounded nose is a blended signature of spiciness, except sweetness and explosion of flavour from the first sip. Blue Label is known to be a nice violet whiskey. So enjoyed flavours like hazelnut, toasted oak, sandalwood, tobacco, and also drinking it neat. So that's probably why it does taste the way it does, because one thing I've noticed about the type of scotches and whiskies I've drank over the years is the Highlands of Scotland are a lot more lighter and floral and sweet and just nice type thing. But if you go down to the lowlands of Scotland, you tend to find them to be a bit more darker, a bit more harsher, and a bit more smokier type thing. I know that sounds a bit weird, but that's just how I feel about it. It has a bit more of a smoky type flavour to it. It's a nice whiskies down there, but I prefer the Highlands of the whiskies. That's what I prefer anyway. And the best tasting whiskey of the Johnnie Walkers, like I said, was the Blue Label. Now this next one is a blended whiskey. This is Monkey Shoulder. Now Monkey Shoulder is an absolutely fantastic drink. You can have this on its own. It is very, very nice. And now Monkey Shoulder is pretty well known, I suppose. But if you don't know, Monkey Shoulder is a Scotch. It's a superb blended malt whiskey. Remember what I said to you about blended and single malts. Now with this, for the whiskey from William Grant, made from single malts from 3 famous seaside distilleries. Now, can you guess which one of those distilleries is actually in Monkey Shoulder? It's in Seaside. I told you this before. Now, apparently, Glenfiddich puts their whiskey in Monkey Shoulder. So there you go. And results of a smooth, creamy, simple, very malty Scotch, which works superbly well neat over ice, so on the rocks, and in a whiskey cocktail. Really? Where it really excels. So you put it in a cocktail, it really brings out the flavours, which is probably true. Now, the tasting notes of this is nose. I'm not going to tell you really the whole thing, but I'll give you just the palates. Well, the palates, because when you really want to get into this real whiskey connoisseur type thing, you got to know the 3 things. You got to know the nose, the palate, and the finish. Now, you got to whisk it around and all that type of jazz. You got to whisk it around, not just chucking it around. That's if you're a wino. If you're a wine person, you whisk it around. With whiskey, you don't. You just tilt it over, and you just spin it a little bit until it gets to the other side, and you tip it on again. And you see, and apparently the thinner the things go down the glass, the more high the alcohol content is. The wider they are, the less thing it is. So, and then you put up to your nose, and what I know from YouTube videos that I've seen and what I've done over the years, when you want to smell a whiskey, don't have your mouth closed. Have your mouth open, because all the vapors and all the flavors are going to get stuck in your nose cavity, and you won't be able to have the full experience of it. Apparently, you gotta open up your mouth, so you gotta put your tongue on top of your roof of your mouth, and then have your mouth open a bit, or put your open up your mouth but close your teeth, and just smell it like that. You know what I mean? Because then the whole smell can go through your face and through your nose, down through your mouth. Now, the palate is a very malty, very creamy delivery of berry fruit, juicy toasted barley, cloves, and butterscotch. It's got a nice thing of honey with hot buttered toast and dried apricot developed. That is completely true. It is a beautiful scotch. It is absolutely fantastic. Now, the finish is a medium length spicy oak with a hint of peppermint on the trail. And basically that's about it. Now I'm not just going to talk about Scotland and America here, guys. I've been here in Australia, and we've got some good bloody distilleries over here too. Now, I've been over to Tassie, and I've actually been to these 2 distilleries. I've actually tried them, and they are beautiful. This is Lark Distillery in Tasmania. It's in the heart of Hobart, in the city of Hobart. absolutely beautiful whiskey. They make a very nice liqueur that I picked up there. I also got myself a bottle of it. Very nice stuff, beautiful stuff. And now, for the people who, because I'm not just saying from an Australian point of view, because I know there's people from France, there's people from Ireland, and there's also people from America. Now, part of Tasmania's best distilleries lies right in the heart of Hobart. Lark Distillery was founded in 1992 by the owner, realised that Tasmania had all the ingredients of the beautiful malt whiskey, yet no one seemed to be juicing it. Lark has grown to be one of the top distilleries in the country, creating the premium spirit, time-honoured methods. At the cellar door, over 150 malt whiskies are on offer. So there's a lot of whiskey to be offered. Now this is another one. This is actually older than Lark, I'm pretty sure. Now this is Hylas Road in Tasmania. Now I've actually been to the distillery. Now it was fantastic to go to this distillery, mate. It was absolutely beautiful, because what actually ended up happening is they actually went to the distillery and done a tour there, had a taste of different ingredients and felt the grains, and I actually get to bottle my own one out of the barrel, and actually bottled one and put the wax on and everything. It was fantastic, and they are beautiful whiskies over there. So the story of Hylas Road. Now this is a Hylas Road distillery in Tasmania. Now Hylas Road is unlikely as it's rewarding. Now it begins near a town called Burnie, that's on the northern coast of Tasmania, which is the corner of the world of the human building things, the growing things, and milking things. Winding up the above of the town of the road is the road. Now, this is a very interesting story about Hylas Road Distillery. This is really interesting. The trail was once bush. The bush in 1827 was carved out by Henry Hyler, an explorer and a cartographer, something, I don't know, Cartographer, who, according to local legend, had a little more than a bullock gang. More than a bullock gang, okay. Most basic of tools. Today, the road is once named in his honour, and the home of the whiskey distillery is named in his honour. Now, it was founded by a group of dairy farmers, so milk farmers. These farmers knew their environment was perfect for sourcing ingredients and for its quality. Like Henry Hyler, it was they had the patience and the tenacity. Jesus, I'm mixing up words bad today. To more or less do it. Today, Hylas Road Distillery will produce whiskies of great quantity, and will continue to win international awards. So it's a pretty big whiskey. They export to 20 countries along the way of becoming Australia's biggest selling local crafted whiskey. Hylas Road story is one of the foresight and determination inspired the Henry spirit and the great whiskey that captures every taste of the character of Tasmania. But that is it, guys. That is the end of my notes, and that is the end of this episode. It has been so fan-fucking-tastic bringing these episodes to you. This is episode 10, guys. I'm really excited about bringing another 10 to you, which would be coming up very soon. But thank you very much for joining me today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, like I will have in the outro. I hope you learned something, and hopefully you give me a nice review on wherever you heard this podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Deezer, or wherever, Google Podcasts, whatever. Just give us a review. That helps me a fair bit. Make sure, I'll say this always in the outro as well, make sure you head over to my Facebook, Matt Edwards Media. Send me a message, mate, if you want to. If you want to, all that type of thing, send me a message and ask me a question if you want. If you want me to talk about a certain topic, just send me a message and I'll get back to you. And I'll also give you a shout out too. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you for the next one. Catch you later, guys. So that's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to give me a review and rate it. It's very much appreciated. If you want to get in contact with me, make sure you head over to my Facebook page at Matt Edwards Media, which you can send me a message at. If you also want to donate, go over to my PayPal account, which is in the show notes. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you for the next one. See you later.